Welcome to the best episode of Interior Analysis. I'm your host for this one, Jelani T. Kelly.
I'm Evan Westman.
I'm David Jones.
And today we're talking about the GOAT of movies ever of all time. Well, that remains to be seen with the sequel. But is it Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse, or is it just Spiderverse?
It's Spiderman.
All of the above.
Yeah, Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. Welcome. There's a lot to be discussed. There's a lot of topics. This was just some intro stuff. This was directed by Bob, Persichetti, I think.
That looks right. That sounds right from the look of it.
Peter Ramsey and Rodney Rothman. The writers were Phil Lord, who wrote the Lego Movie and directed. I think I mentioned at some point, one of the minds behind 21 and 22 Jump Street. He was one of the directors. And written by Rodney Rothman as well. Budget of $90 million, box office of $384.3 million. So safe to say it made its money back, and it's got a damn 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's critic score, 93% audience, but pretty damn high. So my introductions and reactions will just get me into my first topic, which is why it's my favorite movie, which I hope will lend to discussion. So I'm gonna let you guys talk about your initial stuff prior to topics now.
So I remember seeing the trailer before this movie came out, and I was one of the few people in my friend group who was excited for it. Everyone, and on the internet it was the same, wrote this movie off when the trailer came out. And I could just tell, like, it was different. I was like, I could feel it. I was like, this is going to be something. And from the moment that movie opens, and it's just like everything glitching and everything, and then like, wah, wah, you see Spider-Man, and you just know you're going for a ride. And that's been this movie this whole time in my life. I love it. I've seen it, like, I don't know, 30 times in various mental stages under different capacities.
30 times?
Yeah.
30
yeah.
times.
I've seen it, and then I've talked for like 4 hours afterwards with like people I know. It is one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. And as far as animated films, it's in like top, like, at least 3 to 5 ever made animated films, period. It changed animation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will second you on how highly you regard it, and I'm gonna one up you a little bit on animation. I'm gonna say tied for best with Inside Out. I was going back and forth.
Crazy.
Personally, Inside Out means a little bit more to me. So if I had to say favorite, it's Inside Out, but it is so closely followed by this. And in terms of like what I would say best, they are tied. And Across the Spiderverse could beat all in both categories. Like, it could be my favorite animated movie. It could be the best one ever. We're also, for context, we're recording this the night before it comes out broadly. So by the time this comes out, whenever I get this out, it'll probably have been in theaters for a little bit, but none of us have seen it yet. I definitely was not as excited going into this. When I first heard about this, I was like, that sounds like a terrible idea. Like, that sounds like it's never gonna work. I didn't even mean to see it. I basically went by accident because, like, so I have 3 younger sisters, and the middle one had like 10 friends sleeping over at one night during winter break. So my mom was like, all right, well, you 3, me and my other 2 sisters, like, you guys should just probably get out of the house for a bit. What movies are out? And the youngest one was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 at the time, so we couldn't go see like The Favorite, which is probably what I would have wanted to see. So I was like, all right, screw it, let's go see Spider-Verse. Let's see how this is. I've heard good things, whatever. And then it's just like,
You loved it more than she did.
yeah, well, okay, but she really loved it too, like the youngest one. I saw her last week, and she's like, I'm so hyped for Across the Spider-Verse, and I was like, I know, it's like, we were nerding out so hard, but it's so insane to think of that there was a time I thought this was going to be bad, because I think there's maybe 3 or 4 other movies along with this that I would say are perfect, and I feel okay using that word with it. It's like this, The Prestige, and The Social Network. Maybe there's one I'm forgetting, but like
Inception.
No, I like Inception better than all of those. There's a few movies that are like all of those are in my top 15, but there are some things I like. Like I like Tenet more than this movie. Tenet is incredibly imperfect, though. There are mad problems with Tenet. I do kind of enjoy the experience of watching it more than this, but I would never in a million years say it is better.
And that's why you're not leading this episode.
Yep, that's what. Yeah, I still love it. I still love it. I mean, truly though, there's no part of this movie I dislike. There's just moments where it's like not firing on every single possible cylinder, where it's like, and you know, it has to do that, but like the highs are just so high that it's like, oh, I don't remember like this one little scene that is also perfect in this movie. Only other thing I had going in, I did have a little bit of background on Miles because about a year before it came out, I had to read, I don't know if it's the comic that introduces him, but it's a comic that introduces him. It was for a class. So I had a little bit of prior knowledge going into it. Like Spider-Man does die, like Peter Parker dies in that comic, so that was like not a new thing for me. Uncle Aaron is introduced and his dad. And there's a blink and you'll miss it line in the movie about him like winning a lottery to get into the school. I kind of had some background there because the comic, I reread it before doing this episode, and the comic that I read opens with that scene of him winning the lottery to get in. So there's a little bit of background that I had. Otherwise, like, I love this now. The only thing I really wish is that this had been around when I was 9, because I would love to have experienced this as a kid, but it's still freaking amazing as an adult.
Yeah. So I was more on the same. If I get distracted, it's because it's on FX right now, and it's
You're watching it right now?
Yeah, I have the sound off, but like they just got to Spider-Man's funeral.
I wouldn't be hearing a word we're saying.
No, I was listening. I'm more along the lines of what Evan said. Yeah, I wasn't too high. I don't even remember seeing the trailer, but it had been out for like 4 weeks by the time I had seen it. Like it was just about done with its theater run. I found the time when I went home. I think I was still in college. Saw this in my local theater, back in my hometown with my little brother. I have still have a Miles Morales Spider-Man costume that I wore to this. No one said anything to me about it while I was there, but it felt cool to dress up. People were just looking, but that was it. There's actually a picture I have on Instagram commemorating the day we walked home, I believe. I want to double check to see if it's there. I did the same thing when I went to the second Black Panther movie. I dressed damn near identical to Killmonger in the museum scene from Black Panther 1, and that is also, yeah, it's on Instagram. I'm in the costume.
Come on, cosplay king.
Thanks. So I didn't think this movie would work. At least it didn't sound that way, but after hearing good things about it, I was just like, I haven't seen a movie in a while. I went. And I'm really glad I did, because now it's my number 1 favorite movie. For now. We'll see how the sequel does. I'm hearing great things about that too. I don't know if it'll surpass this one. We shall still see. But yeah, that's my intro to the thing. And then I said it's my favorite movie, so if that's it for initial stuff, we're just gonna jump into
Go off.
something weird. We each kind of brought 2 topics to this discussion, this podcast episode, and one of mine I hope will lend to any discussion, because I'm going to discuss why this is my favorite movie. Number 1, not in any particular order. I just wrote them down as they came to mind. The music. I normally if I listen to an album, let's say 12 songs, and I download 3, I'll think the album is decent. If I download 5 to 6, pretty much half the album, I think it's one of my favorite albums. I want to say I downloaded at least half of the songs from this movie. Of course, Sunflower. I think that's what also got me into it. I saw Sunflower, the music video, before seeing the movie.
A lot of
And I
people
was
say
like,
that.
yeah. I was like,
I don't know
okay,
why
I
that's
kinda
the
wanna see
only one
this.
that blew up though, because like there's so like the entire soundtrack is great, but for some reason that's the
Yeah.
only one that made the radio, and it's good, but I wouldn't even say it's the best one.
All right, let's chill out. I love Sunflower.
I'm saying no shade. It's just like it's like it's probably it's still a great song, but like why is that the only one? Is what I'm saying. That like
Oh yeah, you're saying they all should have,
yeah,
or a lot of
and
them
none of
should've,
them got
yeah.
Oscar noms, and they're all original. Like
That's absurd.
yeah, I don't think they could have beat because Shallow was the big one that year, and everyone knew that was going to win, but not even nominated. I think that's
What do I have? Elevate, Scared of the Dark, Home, all just banger after banger from the creative minds behind the music. So that's just one thing. Another thing, Black Genius main character. I don't know how often you see that in movies. Y'all are welcome to give me a few, but it's not a common thing you see in movies, especially just a black protagonist. And that also ties in with like representation. I think representation matters. So allowing just black man or just any black person to see themselves on screen as the lead and see them come into their own, it's pretty damn heartwarming. And I'll get into it, but I see myself in the character. So another thing, casting. Oh man, I don't know how they did it with the budget and made the movie look the way it did with such tight writing, and that's insane. But the cast, there's some serious star power behind. And I think we talked about this in one of the other, I forget which movie. It might have been Bullet Train, I think. We talk about how star-studded cast movies normally do really well or flop spectacularly. Yeah, this is not one of the floppers.
I feel like they didn't lean on the cast that much in the marketing though. Like
No,
they
they
should
didn't.
have. I feel like they should have. Like it was a surprise to me when I heard Nick Cage and John Mulaney. Why was that not in the advertising?
Yeah, John Mulaney. Was it Liv Schreiber as Kingpin?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, Catherine Hahn as Octavia. Doc Ock.
Lily Tomlin was Aunt May.
Yes.
Very, very big cast. But they don't even the main guy who did Miles, like he just did the breakout role with the other guy with like the Get Down on Netflix, so he was really popping too.
Oh, I know him from Dope.
He was good in
Shamik, I was
Dope, too.
gonna say. Shamik Moore,
Mhm.
Haley Steinfeld, Chris Pine was the first Spider-Man. Was it Jake Johnson, I think, from New Girl?
Yeah.
That's what I know him. Well, I've never watched the show, but I also saw Let's Be Cops, and I recognize him from that. Yeah, I forget who played, I think it was Zoe Kravitz was MJ?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movie was insane with casting. Comedy, another reason. I'm not even halfway through my list, guys. Comedy was another reason. And this is what I was saying when I said I was going to bring up minds behind my two favorite. I think Chris Miller was only a producer on this movie, but I said minds, meaning Phil and Lord and Phil and Lord. Wait, no, sorry, Lord and Miller. Minds behind my two favorite comedy movies. Two of my favorite comedy movies, 21 and 22 Jump Street. I think they were writers on that. No, they were directors. The animation, I don't know why they decided to go 30 frames a second on it. It's different though.
24,
24, that's what I meant.
and then when he's
It's-
struggling, it's 12.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
I don't know.
there's some parts where it's like they do mess around with the frame rate. I don't know if I can spit it back perfectly, but I know they animate him more to be more jittery when he's like the one
beginning.
that I've heard about is when Peter B. Parker is teaching him to swing, they like they like animate them out of sync for part of it when they're like not in sync together, and then as they start swinging together, they make the animation in sync somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not explaining that perfectly, but it's something like that.
Yeah, and by
Listen,
the end, he's swinging in 24, so it just charters like his actual progress.
Mm-hmm.
Which it did take some people out of it. Like my one friend who I brought after I saw it, I was like, "You have to see this movie." He was like, it's giving me a headache." So like, that is like a cost, but I think a majority of people are able to deal with it.
Yeah, it is kind of
Yeah.
trippy with some of the visual. Like, I like it, but if you have epilepsy, that like I'm sure it is not a good time with this movie.
I don't understand the 24 choice. I'm not complaining about it personally. I just think it makes the movie more unique. And I used to be an animation major. I should know more about this. And then just like included in animation, the art style, everybody looks distinct, all of that. You get it. It's a great looking movie. Themes, we'll get into that. But the themes in the movie, there's you got themes. Real thick themes. The heart, metaphorically speaking, I damn near cried at the leap of faith scene on my second rewatch with my dad and brother. They didn't know that. And then even more heart with the leap of faith scene again on, I think this recording was my third or fourth rewatch, which is why I was just like, damn, David, with the 30 times.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked you don't watch this more. But
It's because I don't. It's because I don't want to cry. Almost cry a bunch of times.
I want to.
Okay.
The fact that you were like, I almost cried, I'm like, you're a bitch. I would have been like,
I just don't want to wear it out. Like, I want to make it a little bit special.
It wears
I've
me
seen
out.
it like. No, but like you don't want to revisit your favorite things too often. I think I like to spread it a little bit.
I'm the opposite. I watch Scream maybe at least twice a year.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's different with
Okay.
different things. I can rewatch the first Kingsman movie as many times as I want, and it never gets old. But, like, there's other stuff that I like significantly more that I can't do that with, and this is one of them. You want it to still feel a little surprising.
It's kind of like your favorite song, listening to your
Yeah.
new favorite song over and over again, and then
For
it
5
just
years.
wears out eventually. And it's just like, this does not sound the same as when I
100%.
first heard it at this
I'm
point.
just built different.
All right.
Well, I mean, I think it's different for different people. Like, and
Exactly.
it's a different kind of favorite.
So I almost cried again in this rewatch. And then almost cried again with the dorm room scene prior to that. And then almost cried again prior to that one with Uncle Aaron's death itself. Honestly, that entire, end of second into third act is a roller
And
coaster.
he's just trying to pull his mask down, so slightly. He's like, no, I didn't see it. I didn't. Oh.
Yeah.
God.
Like everything from as basically from Uncle Aaron's death to the end, I was choked up this time. Basically the entire all the way through.
I'm not going to say it's a lot to deal with. It's just, it hits you, man.
Yeah,
Regardless, if you don't...
I got choked up during the trailer for Across the Spiderverse. Just the music and I think it's the one I've been avoiding the more recent trailers, but the one where
Yes,
his mom doing the voiceover, and they mostly I think do images from the first movie. I was just like, damn, this hits. The first movie just has given me so much access to this character, and the music does it too, but it that's all it needed to just get me on the verge of tears with that trailer. I don't yeah. Sorry, I interrupted that, but
No, this is... I'm glad it's leading to discussion. Yeah, heart. It's got it. And you want to talk about a love letter to Spider-Man as a character, I think this does a better job than No Way Home. No Way Home is
Oh, hell
more
yeah.
fan service than anything. I haven't even rewatched No Way Home since I saw it in theaters. To each their own. Rewatchability with things I missed. There's just little things and sentences here and there where I'm just like, oh, well, that explains that. I wasn't questioning it before, but that's nice to know. Like when they're in the subway, in the tunnels, Aaron and Miles. Miles asks, how did you know about this place? And Aaron says, did an engineering job down here. I would assume he meant something to do with the Prowler, or he was actually an engineer before. I don't know.
I
And
doubt
then-
he was an engineer.
I don't know. I think he might be. I'm not remembering the comic perfectly, but I think he.
I think he was engineering as the Prowler. I think he was doing some nice little Tinker Tailor Soldier spy
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
No, I think he does work at like some. The universe of it is a little different in that comic because like the Avengers are a thing in it, and
Yeah.
I don't think. I didn't read like a whole thing. I think it was just one issue, and it didn't reveal he was the Prowler in that. So that whole I don't know, but canonically, I think he might actually be an engineer or some kind of scientist.
The stand clear of the closing doors, please. It's a blink and you'll miss it in the background thing. I think when he's getting off the subway at some point, obviously. But it's legit, just ripped straight from New York subways. Having been there myself for acting gigs, that's exactly what it sounds like. They did it. They just they recorded
They did that subway.
Yep. This is part of the heart. And another thing, why it's one of my favorite movies, Kingpin's wideness.
That is
I
a
don't-
big dude.
I don't know why they made him as... Listen, Kingpin he's a big guy. For whatever reason in the comics, they pointed out he has 0 body fat. I don't know how, but he does. And this boy is wide in this movie. Like, he's got a tiny little head.
That's somehow below his shoulders.
Yep. And a wide back. That's another... I appreciate the wideness.
I really could not predict this list.
And then a little bit back to the heart. Last point, the spark talk between Miles and his dad is kind of how my dad says the exact same thing about me and my brother. When he was saying like it's yours. I see the spark in you. It's yours. It's you just got to choose what you want to do with it, or however he says it. I'm just like, damn. I feel that. Damn, that's great. So yeah, those are. I'm sure I'll find more in the discussion to come, but those are some of the reasons why this is my number 1 favorite movie.
I mean, it's a hell of a favorite to pick. I'm not going to say there aren't movies that I wouldn't judge you for. I might have said too many double negatives there, but like, truly, like, I have no criticisms of this. So I see you all the way on why it's your absolute favorite.
Yeah, I like how wide he is.
That boy wide, bro. I don't know.
He's so big.
They don't like. That's what I was saying about the anime. Like, everybody's stylized. Like, they don't explain why he needs to be that wide. We don't
He's
really
so
see
scary,
his
though.
feet.
But like it makes
Yeah.
sense too, like because like it's in Miles' POV, and when you're a kid and he's in that situation, that dude, even if he isn't really that wide, he feels that big. Like he feels that big and bulky and looming. And when like his big black suit masses over the frame, and it's just like the darkness, like it's just the kid. You could be a kid and you could be 3 and you go goo goo gaga. That's bad guy. Like it's just
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, well, he's also able to, like, I don't know about one shot, but he kills Spider-Man just, like, he has nothing, he has no powers, he's just huge. Like, that is,
He breaks the skull.
yeah, like, I didn't get it this time, but a few of the times that I've watched that final fight, like, even after the first one, between Miles and Kingpin, when it's, like, them soloing each other, he is so scary in that fight. Like,
Yep.
he's just raw force.
Yep.
And Miles gets back up.
I don't know how he survived that hit, but you guys said he hit Spider-Man in the skull. That's how he killed him.
That's
I
what it
wasn't
looks
being that
like.
literal.
I-
It just he hits him in like the face area, body.
I always kind of assume that, like, they can't show it, of course, but I always kind of assume that he crushes his skull. That's typically what
That would make
assume.
sense as to why Miles survives the later, like the same move later. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, but it is the same move, and it's like they don't hold back with him.
Nope.
He has to walk sideways through doors, man.
Yep. If you can call it walking, it's more of a waddle.
I don't know, they gotta like rezone Alchemex for him, probably. It didn't seem like they did. They probably should have, though.
All right. So do we want to get into some of the other topics? If you have nothing else to say as to why this is my favorite movie, feel free.
Why would this be your favorite movie?
I don't know. It checks like every single one of your boxes aside from like extreme violence. So
And crazy, unpredictable deaths. That too.
it still even has that if you don't see the original Spider-Man's death coming. That may not have been unpredictable for you. For a lot of people, I think it would have.
I don't remember if I did.
For
I don't
me,
think I saw
when
that
I saw
coming.
him die, it disarmed Uncle Aaron's death. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's gonna be the
This already, we're doing that, and now Uncle Aaron won't die in this one. Because there's like some comics where he does, some where he doesn't. And I was like, all right, cool. And then when they hit me with that, I felt like punching the gut.
Mm-hmm. And I still feel like going into the sequel, like, I'm not convinced that Peter B. Parker is making out of that movie alive. I feel like he could sacrifice himself somewhere. I don't know how, but I don't.
He already
feel
tried
like
in
he's
this
safe.
movie.
Yeah, well, and I know I've heard the reaction that like some people thought maybe he wouldn't make it out of this first movie. I still feel like he's not entirely safe in the sequel.
They gave him a kid. That's a death sentence.
Oh, yeah, true.
Wait, is that in the trailers?
Oh shoot, no,
I didn't see that. Okay.
no, it's not in the. Yeah, it's in the trailer.
Okay.
I was trying to say no, like I don't know what you're talking about.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's in.
That's news to me.
I won't say nothing else.
Yeah, we should probably stay off the sequel because I'm still trying to be in ostrich mode.
Mahershala Ali is one of the people I didn't mention earlier. I feel like if I didn't just mention him, it'd be disrespectful. So,
Did we mention Logic?
Who does Logic play?
His uncle, right?
No, that's
No,
No.
Common, not Logic. I get one name is messed up. Common. Did we mention Common?
No, that's Mahershala Ali.
That's Mahershala Ali?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
You didn't
saying.
know that?
No, my friend told me it was Common.
Well,
There
they're
ain't
wrong.
no Common, bro.
Well, that's why I can't trust my friend now.
Who is that friend? They're racist.
No, they're not racist, but they're just a big Spider-Man fan.
Apparently not big enough.
No, they're just not a big film person. They're not gonna know that.
Seems like it should be common knowledge that
Ah!
I'm not even gonna finish that. You get it.
Yeah.
All right. Establishing family relationships. I forget whose topic this is.
It's mine.
It's Evans. Go.
Yeah, so back about a year ago when Jelani and I did the Spider-Man Before the Bite video that we made,
Yeah.
which you can go check out. We looked at like basically exposition of each of the Spider-Men that we cover in that like the name says, Before the Bite. And we did like a list of stuff that we learn about each of them. I think we only had 5 things for Miles, and I'm okay with that list. It could have been so much longer.
It was only 5 things, and it was still way more than both Toby and Andrew.
Well, I feel like it wasn't necessarily like more in quantity, but like more substantial things that we learn.
Yeah.
I still stand by that. Like the Amazing Spider-Man does a good job with it, but like compared to the amount that we learn about Miles in the first 10 minutes of this movie is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And the thing that kept impressing me, and like the efficiency and exposition across this entire movie are phenomenal, and we'll probably bring that up more later. But the thing that just kept constantly impressing me was the 2 scenes between him and his dad, and then later him and Uncle Aaron, because he really only has the one scene. He has a couple more with his dad, but it's not like a full scene. They're like moments. You really only have the one scene with each of them to establish these kind of complex relationships for the entire rest of the movie. So they have to do so much work. It's mind-blowingly like natural, for one thing. I feel like it's more impressive with his dad, because by the end of that car ride, when he gets out and he doesn't want to say I love you back, we have to know that he's only doing it out of embarrassment and that he does love his dad. Because if you don't do that scene right and you don't have like each of the beats of it hit that way, it could come off like that, and it never, I feel like it never could with the way that they do it. But we still see like that tension there, but like that they're both trying to connect. It's a complicated relationship that gets set up perfectly in like 2 minutes, which is just insanely good writing. And I like, just kind of on the broader level of the whole story, I think it's a really smart amount of tension that they make with his dad, because it's enough that there's like a gap that needs to be bridged and like a conflict that needs to be resolved, but we still feel from the start that there's at least potential for this to be a positive relationship. Maybe it is already, we don't, but we could still feel like there's something missing there. So there can be a catharsis and a resolution, but it's not a negative relationship. And we get that very clearly with that one scene. And I'm just really impressed with that. And with the Uncle Aaron scene, again, it's all very natural, but we can just kind of feel that Miles is more comfortable around him. Mm-hmm. And he still looks to Uncle Aaron as a role model, but in a very different way than his dad. But he's also kind of like trying to act cool in front of Aaron in a way that he doesn't feel the need to with his dad. And like, I don't know, it just feels like such a well lived in relationship. You can tell Miles kind of doesn't quite feel comfortable like being super vulnerable with Aaron in that first scene, even though later he like writes the letter to him. So there is like, he does feel comfortable with it on some level. And I feel like we still get the sense from Uncle Aaron that like he cares enough for Miles that Miles could be vulnerable with him if he wanted to. Like, I feel like the moment when he introduces the shoulder touch is perfect. Like, where it comes in that conversation, where Miles is kind of deflecting. He's like, we're laying down the groundwork there. A different kind of uncle would have just, like, kept on giving him a hard time. And Aaron doesn't do that. He's like, he's still kind of, like, messing with him a little bit with it. But he's like, try the shoulder touch yet? Like, giving him tips for, like, here's how to connect with people. Here's how to hit on girls.
Here's how to defeat the main villain.
Here's how to defeat the main villain. Yes. But I just love it's great show don't tell. We feel so much of the relationship coming through in like the smallest of moments in that entire scene. And there's so many. And even like across both of them, Uncle Aaron and Miles' dad never have a scene together. But we just get a little bit from both of them to see like they still care about each other at some level, but there is mad tension and a ton of history that is unresolved between them. And the comic I read goes into it a bit more. Probably others do too. We don't really get it textually in the movie, but we get enough. And again, it's a perfect amount. Like when Uncle Aaron dies, I totally buy his dad's reaction. Like, yes, there was history between them, but it wasn't so bad that like they were completely isolated. Like there's still a love there. It's just a really complicated one.
I was gonna mention they're not close, but they don't gloss over it. Like there's a few sentences that each mentions to Miles at some point about the other in those beginning scenes, but not much is needed to be said to understand where they are as brothers right now, or in those beginning scenes. And even though they weren't speaking to one another, a brother is a brother, man. And the loss of Aaron clearly hurt Jeff, so they did a good job establishing where their relationship was. Like that also hurts more because it showed there was potential for it to be fixed at some point. Right. Like there wasn't a no going back, I'm never speaking to him again, you shouldn't be seeing your uncle type of thing. It was they were not speaking to each other for a while type thing where they probably could have come back at some point, but tragedy struck.
Yeah, well, there's even the moment, it's a really small one, but when Miles' dad calls Uncle Aaron, it just goes to voicemail. But the fact that he calls means so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tells him, like, he knows Miles likes to hang out with him, so that means, like, this whole time Miles thinks he's sneaking. The dad knows where he's going, and he's okay with it. Like, there's distance in their relationship, but clearly there's a fondness that he has with Aaron that he wants his son to have with him, because he goes, like, even when Aaron's like, yeah, me and your dad used to come down here and do this, like, his dad still feels that. He can't show it because he has to be, like, the cop dad, but that's still him.
Oh, right. When he says, I wouldn't be calling if this wasn't important.
Yeah, because he knows that's where his son goes.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to take that away from him, and I think that's why I'm glad they don't have a scene together, because if they had a scene together, I wouldn't have felt that loss as much. Like, one of the big morals of the story is, like, and that's why when the dad comes and tells him, like, you have this spark, don't waste it, it's like, life isn't guaranteed, not to Spider-Man, not to Prowler, not to anybody, and you can bicker and fight over anything, but one day we're all going in the dirt, and you're gonna regret that time that you wasted. And, like, don't waste your spark, go for it. And he saw that with his son. He had it with his brother, he doesn't want it with his son.
Yeah, just his line, like, sometimes people drift apart. It's like, damn, that's just perfect. And the way they, like, recontextualize it into, like, his dad's choice in this moment is to, like, not lose out on, like, the chance to connect with his kid. It just it feels perfect.
Yeah.
And then later he's standing on his dad's shoulders making the whole mural for Aaron, just like he was standing on Aaron's shoulders making the mural for himself, not sure who he was going to be, and now he knows exactly the man he's going to be. So good.
Great expectations.
Yeah. We even see too, like, in the two scenes, we, like, it's just implied, but it feels like we get such a I feel like I know exactly, like, where they differ on their life philosophies of, like, his dad seems very, like, he will follow every rule to a T. Like,
straight edge.
Yeah, he's very straight edged. And, with, obviously he doesn't know until later about Aaron being the Prowler, but, like, clearly Aaron does not feel the same. And I feel like it probably extends beyond that, but it's just, it feels so well, like, it's conveyed so well in so little. So just for the one other family relationship in this, we don't get a lot with Miles' mom, but even, like, the tiny bit that we do still feels like it has a ton of history. It seems like from the one trailer that I've seen, or, well, two, but one of them that shows his mom more, like, maybe we'll get more of her in the sequel. I think we should. I think it's fine that, like, I don't want to say they sideline her in this, but we'll talk about too many characters. I think it gives her as much, like, screen time as it can afford to, and as much, like, weight as it can in that time. But I do hope we get more of her, because I think I'm sure there's more in the comics that it can go off of, but I'm hoping for that. That's the end of my topic. There's a million impressive things about this movie, but that's the one that I feel like has stuck out to me the most in thinking about it, in, like, anticipation for the sequel and stuff.
So you want all the Spider-Men across the Spider-Verse to Spider-Men and women across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Men, women, and non-binary. I don't
Spider
know.
people.
Spider people.
Oh, well, Spider. Yeah,
Well, what
Spider
if-
people? Because I would say
what if
Spider-Ham
is not
still
a person?
It's not a human, but it's a person.
The spiders. The spiders.
Where did we go? We were
Where
doing
was I going with this? I don't know.
We're trying to be inclusive.
You
Dan.
want them all to be one big family, Evan? You want Vin Diesel to be a spider person?
No, but I bet some casting
Spider
director has
group.
been like, guys, you know who we ought to get for the third one?
I don't like that voice, whoever that is.
It's not a person I'm trying to make you like.
Yeah, I know. I don't want you to use that one again with me around. If that's it for family, David, is yours the surprising? Yeah,
Yeah, mine's the like origin story
Alright,
vibe.
let's get it.
All right, so we kind of already talked about some of the points where like a lot of the origin story for me that I really enjoy is baked into like the emotional underpinnings of the story between Miles and his uncle and his dad. And I guess like I think we're all gonna be in the agreement on here, but like, do you guys also feel like because we got to spend more time with the characters by the time this big tragedy happens to the Spider-Man, that like it was more thematic and meant more than like 20 minutes in and like, oh, you didn't go pick up eggs, so now I got shot.
Yeah.
Don't come after the eggs moment, bro. But yes, I agree.
Or milk, whatever they do in any of them. Whatever Uncle Ben has to pick up that gets him shot.
What, your daddy didn't give enough money for the milk?
Literally.
Whatever this shop.
Oh wait, you're talking about a different one. Okay, sorry. There's a different moment in Amazing Spider-Man that I thought you were going after. Fair jab.
Oh, when he got his butt kicked and he forgot the eggs.
Yeah, and then he brings the eggs to Aunt May at the end. I love that.
No, that was such a. Oh. Don't go after
She
the
cries
eggs
too, right? Doesn't Sally Field just like burst and like cry and laugh? She's like, ah! Or am I like forgetting?
I think it might be. I haven't seen that in a little bit.
She's good. I like her as Aunt May.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main thing that like allowed this death of Aaron to really hit was the disarming fact of like seeing Miles get bit and then have the beat of a death after the bite, and then seeing how he's going to be the Spider-Man. I fully was just like ready for maybe like if it got a sequel we would see a Prowler death, because I know in the comics like sometimes Miles and Aaron like fight to the death, but I didn't think like we were gonna get Kingpin killing him in front of him later in the movie. So when that moment happened, and like just a couple seconds before the whole reveal of him seeing his nephew after, like we said, their close relationship, because he's able to be vulnerable with him, he's able to like do these different passion projects with his paintings and everything, and it's just like to have that lifeline get lost, I just could feel it personally, because I think a lot of people have that like relationship with someone who like they can't be a certain way with like their parents or their immediate family, so they have like an aunt or an uncle or someone who's not really like a family friend who's a quote unquote an aunt or uncle, and you're able to be a little bit more yourself with them, and to have that like ripped away so violently, it really just got me in my feels. So then like a couple of seconds later when we're dealing with like him webbed up and he's like not able to talk, and his dad comes and gives him that spiel about how like I love you and you don't have to say it back, and I see you there, like I am just, as Lavender Gill would say, big -5. I am just slapped in the face, just kicked on the floor, spit on, like I feel terrible. And then that moment of that leap of faith, that insane switch to now a +5, and just seeing him fall and the frame be flipped and having him rise, and
Yes,
the shattering of the glass, it's just everything, and seeing the web shoot up and his shoes are tied, which is like such a minute little thing. Oh, your shoe is untied. It's a choice, and he's reckless in the first act, and then the choice then is he knows who he is, and he knows what he wants, and he knows who he has to be, the commitment he's made, and it's tied. And I also love the setting choice, because I don't know, I'll send this in the group chat later, but there is a scene that was cut from the original Into the Spider-Verse film, and it essentially does what that scene in the dorm room does, where Peter's like, disarm me, turn invisible, do something so I know you can like hold your own, and since he can't, he like webs them, and like the scene happens on like a billboard, and it's
I've seen
like,
that. I think I watched that
right.
earlier today, or maybe yesterday. I know the scene you're talking about though.
And it's very like, to Evan's point, where those scenes are all show don't tell, that was a tell don't show moment. And I think the scene we get in the movie is like what that scene was trying to do, but so much better. Instead of the dialogue of Miles being like, who I feel like I need to protect and save, we get it all through the action of like him being locked up, and then the dad being there, and all of this. And then like,
What was on the billboard?
nothing, you can't really see it because it's like storyboards. Yeah, it's an Animaniac at that point.
Yeah, it's not fully animated. The sad thing is too, well, I don't know if it's sad, but like it speaks so much to this movie that they cut that, and it's like, yeah, that would have been the worst scene in this movie. That would have been the best scene in so many other movies. And they were like, it's not good enough for this one. Like,
Literally.
it's
They raise it so much just in like the setting choice, like changing it from them sitting on a billboard to being in the dorm room just tells so much of the story. Because like the dad tells him earlier when he sees Peter die and he comes back to the house, the dad's like, you made a commitment to that school, Miles, you got to go back and see the commitment through. And the mom's like, no, he's obviously shaken up, let him stay. So they let him stay. So for the dad to then come to that dorm room and tell him like, you can do anything you want as long as you stick to that commitment, and he makes the commitment to be Spider-Man and then really does anything he wants and leaves the dorm room. It's so well done. Like, oh, I love it. Bill, our old professor for that theater class, he used to always talk about setting being important, and that choice of moving it from just a random billboard to the dorm room means so much to me, at least. I think it's so smart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's one more thing to appreciate about it. I'd never thought of that.
What else about that scene? And like with the billboard, Peter just does like a flip off after talking. He just like does a cool like Spider-Man and like lands, but like because they're in the dorm room and he does like the like kick him, disarm, trip, hold his shirt, that allows for a nice setup payoff moment a couple moments later when Miles allows Peter to go back home by doing it to him. So like there's just a lot more thematically happening in the version we got that I prefer from like the storyboard that they showed us. But you know, it's really cool. And I also love the complexity of the conversation with his dad. Like on one side, like you guys are saying, like he's telling him go after this spark, and then on the other side he's hunting Spider-Man because he doesn't know like that he thinks Spider-Man killed Prowler. So like it's so beautifully ironic because he wants him to be Spider-Man without even knowing it. And I think that speaks to a lot of like parents who like they have good intentions for their kids, but they don't know sometimes like they need to let their kids be them sometimes. And like this was like that's kind of like the dad learning that, in my opinion. He's like, you just got to do you. Like I can't always be that person. I've realized I don't know what's best for you all the time, but I know that you do because I did enough. So like be you because it's good.
Yeah, I love that. I also am really interested to see what they do with that in the sequel, because I mean, I don't know what happens in the comics, and maybe I'm sure some people do. If you guys know, I'd rather not have it spoiled for me, but like I'm really interested to see if they're gonna have a moment where his dad finds out he's Spider-Man, because that's gonna be huge, and it might take I feel like that might be a couple of scenes, or maybe like a whole act, or even we're gonna get a third movie. Maybe we're gonna end the second movie, and him and his dad are not gonna be in a good place because of
It's confirmed we have a third one.
It is.
I think it's slated for next year. I think they're ready.
Beyond the Spider-Verse, because the one that we're getting tomorrow or tonight, they had it written out. It's similar to Infinity War and Endgame, and they said it was just too much, so they split it.
Oh, it's too. I was gonna say 1 year difference is kind of scary because
so they made it, and we'll just get it later.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I could see them. I'm not gonna say I hope this happens. I'm not gonna say that I predict it will, but I think there's groundwork laid where we could end the second movie with Miles' dad really upset that he's Spider-Man, and they don't resolve it at the end of it, and then hopefully we would get a resolution in the third movie. I would hope they would give us that. I also am afraid, because spoilers for the Spider-Man video game, the one from 2018. I haven't played the others.
Okay, I might have mentioned that.
Yeah, Miles' dad dies in that game. I really, really hope they don't do that.
Wait, you said the 2018 or it's Miles Morales?
No, it's in the 2018 game. He dies in that one. The first one.
Yeah, with the Mr. Negative bombing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good moment in that game. I really, really don't want them to kill off his dad in these movies.
Oh,
I think
man. That's what I was scared of for this. I think I played the game before I saw the movie. This movie.
It came out like not long before. I think I played the game well after this movie came out, but I think it was a little before
Release. Wait, this is 2019?
No,
this was after.
No, the game came out 2018.
No. Oh, Game of the Year edition. Sorry. When?
Because 2018 was like the year of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now 2023 is again too, because now we have the sequel to both.
Bro,
Spiderverse
so
and the Spider-Man game. Release date September 7th. So wasn't Spiderverse that later that fall.
Yeah, it was December. It was like right at the end of the year.
Into the Spider-Verse release date May 3rd, 2002. That's not it.
Oh, I didn't see
December
that then.
14th. Yeah, it was later in the years. Okay, yeah. I was afraid of his dad dying in this movie, and when Uncle Aaron did it, I was like, well, they won't kill his dad, too, right? At least in this movie. I'm a little
really
afraid
hope
for
not.
him.
I'm
Y'all
worried for
know.
the next movie.
Yep, and y'all know I like Brian Tyree Henry as an actor, so
Phenomenal.
listen. Please don't hurt good old Jeff, Sony, Phil, if you're listening. You're probably not listening, but Phil, don't do it. Thank you. More on the origin story. I was gonna talk about about him becoming Spider-Man. Like, the build-up to him becoming Spider-Man is obviously what's most important and makes up most of the movie. Peterman, oh no. Peter became Spider-Man on his own. And with Miles, it's about taking on that responsibility as well. But knowing others have done it, like with the scene with the Spider people talking about losing their loved ones, like, yeah, we've all been through it. And I think that also kind of helps him grow into his own, like, yeah, I could do this too, or should do this. What's interesting about this version, because, like, the movie kind of treats this like you've seen Spider-Man before, which is perfectly fine, because I think Spider-Man, by this point, I would hope, is a household name, kind of like Superman or Batman, the trinity of superheroes. Is what's interesting about this version of the Spider-Man origin is by the end of Act 1, start of Act 2 is when the superhero would normally don their costume. Not just Spider-Man origin, but mainly any superhero origin. Miles doesn't until the start of Act 3. And the end of this movie is when he makes his presence known to New York and get the people start getting acclimated to him and all that. So yeah.
I love that scene where he comes back. Lily Tomlin's just there sitting in the chair, and she's like,
Oh, yeah.
I've been waiting. It always
Yeah.
fits eventually.
Yeah.
And that Stan Lee moment pays off so good. And just him
Yeah.
graffitiing an old suit, like, oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, I'll mention it again in my topic. The symbol of his suit evolution is perfect. It's so good. I think in terms of, like, the structure beats you're talking about, Jelani, I think it goes a long way with making this feel different, because the first couple times, like, it took a long time before I was like, oh, both of them have their uncle die. I didn't even think about Uncle Ben. Like, the first several times I saw the Uncle Aaron death scene. I think some of it is just, like, there's more context around it, and, you know, you need it at the point that it comes in the other versions of, like, the Spider-Man origin, but waiting on it because you can is, I think, makes it so much more powerful.
Guys, the scene is coming up.
Oh yeah, I guess it would be if we've been going for as long as we have.
He's fighting the Prowler, and
Oh man,
I'm gonna have to change the channel. Continue.
it's partly the context that it has around it, and that it's the end of Act 2 instead of Act 1. But I think it's there's more to it than that, but it does count for a lot when it happens. And I really love that this movie took its identity, like its really unique identity, and was able to do that, because in basically any other superhero movie, you're not allowed to wait that long. You can't wait until Act 3 for them to start doing the superhero things. You can wait for all of Act 1, maybe even the first half of the movie, before they're like Batman Begins. He doesn't get into the Batman suit until I think the midpoint. But like, that's still earlier. You could not hold that off longer than they do in that movie. And I really love that they are able to be like, all right, we can have Spider-Man stuff happening this entire movie. Let's hold off the big moments until later so that they hit harder. And they hit so much harder.
Yeah.
David, I think you were saying it better than I did earlier. I forget exactly how you worded it, but Yeah, I think Uncle Aaron's death is just it's so much better than Uncle Ben's. Not because like
God,
there's anything wrong
it
with
just
those.
happened.
And it takes advantage of like the history that we already know of Spider-Man. Like it uses that to its advantage really well. In terms of this topic with the origin story, I think where I see it the most is the fact that the world of the movie already knows who Spider-Man is. He's been established for I think 10 years in this world. So there's no moment where the world has to get acclimated to him being a thing. He doesn't have to invent a persona. Like we know the end point is he's going to be Spider-Man. He's not going to be a new type of superhero. We don't have to spend time on that. So it uses that to its advantage to spend more time on other things that we care more about. And I'll talk about that more in another topic. One other thing I wanted to bring up with this, and I guess it's a similar question that David you kind of posed with Uncle Aaron's death, but the leap of faith scene I think has a big place in this conversation. For one thing, it's one of just the greatest scenes of all time. Like I feel like I would name it as best animated scene ever. But I'm trying to figure out why it hits so much harder than the other superhero emergence moments where they like come into their final form and get their suit. I watched it back to back today with the first flight scene from Man of Steel, which is a pretty good scene in itself, but it really can't compare. It's a good scene. I don't love that movie, but that's probably the best scene in it that I can remember. So is it just that we get to spend more time with Miles before that and we spend more time seeing him grow and struggle? Is it just a better scene at like in itself? I think there's a bit of both, but I feel like there's more to it. So do you guys feel like there's like kind of in context of this topic, like what makes the leap of faith scene so much better than every other scene of its kind?
Well, the real reason Miles got them J's on is because the leap of faith is essentially just do it.
Whoa.
So, there you go. And now I'm imagining Shia LaBeouf as the Spider-Verse.
I don't want that.
Ew, that's so scary. If he ever got casted as a voice, that's terrifying.
To answer your question, there's my answer to your question.
Do you think, is it just placement though? Like you were saying with the act structure before?
No, it's not just that. I think it's
No, it can't just be that. There's so much happening.
I think it's a big part of it, though.
Oh yeah, it's a huge part, but it can't just be that. We already talked about how it's a big part. So I'm like, the music, that's hitting at that point. The animation is hitting at that point.
The visuals. Yeah.
The visual payoff of him graffitiing
The
a suit, of him
upside-down
tying his
shot.
shoelace. One of the first moments we see of him, he tries to jump and put a sticker on something, and he literally can't leap because he gets caught on his own shoelace. He gets caught on his own irresponsibility. He can jump off the highest tower in New York and shatter it because his shoes are tied and he's Spider-Man now. Like, it is everything that we just invested an hour in just came to this one single shot and moment. And I just think, like, especially because we were just so down in our emotions with everything with the uncle and his dad, you're just so raw.
It's crazy. Like, sometimes you're on a high and a character's death, like Uncle Aaron, will bring you all the way down. But that rewarding shoot, they use that possibility of, not possibility, but that feel-good movement upward at, like, it's in combination with what you've been waiting for the whole movie. Like, it's a brilliant move.
It's like amazing audience calculation. Like Bruce would always say, like, watch your audience, see how they're reacting and adjust accordingly. Like they knew exactly how the audience was feeling, exactly what they wanted them to feel, like, because it was that tight. And the visuals and the placement and the actual thematic filmmaking that came later and the design of the characters and the animation and the music, it's rare that this level of craft is happening on every level. And it's very special to have it hit in one moment like that.
I hear all of that. I think that's all very good reasons that I wasn't thinking of, with like the dynamics from the lowest low to the highest high. That definitely helps. I think it's also, you guys weren't saying this specifically, but you brought up a couple of like setups and payoffs that it does, and we could have made that an entire topic for this, I think, because of how many there are. But there's some really, really good payoffs in that scene. You don't have time to do the setups as much when you have that moment in Act 1. So I think it's kind of a combination of all of that, and like they just knocked it out of the park. I don't know if there's a lesson to take from that for other things, because this is such a unique type of movie that's allowed to do things that you kind of can't afford to even in other superhero movies. But like, I don't know, if you can make the greatest scene ever, do it. Like, I don't know how to learn from this creatively, but like that scene it's like the best scene ever, basically.
Why is Chance the rapper in any of the songs?
No, but I did notice that was one of the first things I guess kind of an Easter egg that I saw in the movie, that there's the poster of his
he's got
album.
the 4 on his hat.
Instead of the 3 on the coloring book album.
Yeah. Why?
I think it's kind of part of that just like alternate thing where like they have all the advertisements are different, with like cola soda instead of Coke
in Times Square.
Yeah, and I know there's more there's a whole bunch of posters for like fake movies that are there. There's like a Seth Rogen movie called Hold Your Horses, and I think there's some variation on Shaun of the Dead in one of the Times Squares.
Still waiting on Hold Your Horses too.
I don't know what they would call the sequel for that.
Holding Horses.
Horses kick back.
Kick back. Oh, that's definitely what they would call it.
Anyway, back on topic. I'm sorry, they're in the dorm right now. Repeat. Oh no. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get through this rest of this episode dry ride. And the sound's not even on, bro, but I know what's happening.
I know. That's why, like, that's the best part about it, is like saying it all in the visuals. And you can watch like in 20 minutes later when he lets Peter go, and you can watch it with the sound off and be like, I know what's happening. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Oh, fun fact. This movie sparked artists sharing their spider sonas. That's what they were called. Across multiple platforms with their take on Ape, a spider person from the Spiderverse. Taking anyone can wear the mask and running with it. So there's some dope designs you can look up. Anyway, next topic. Let's do... I want to end on superhero genre and identity. So let's do Breaking Too Many Characters, which is yours truly, your boy. This movie has a lot of characters and star power. And I won't list either to you, even though I did earlier, because you yourself, audience, are likely familiar with the movie. At least I hope so. If you aren't...
what are you doing listening this far into the podcast?
Yeah, you're an hour and some change into this, I think. And go watch the movie first, then come back. Thank you. There's a lot of characters. But let me blow your minds by getting even smaller with the topic first. The villains. There are way more than 3 villains in this movie. Post Spider-Man 3, people said that a superhero movie couldn't handle more than 2 villains in a movie. Because Spider-Man 3 had Sandman, Venom, and Hobgoblin. This was unfortunately proven with another Spider-Man movie. General consensus-wise, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm sorry, Evan.
No, we talked about it when we did that episode, that they only really needed Electro there.
Yeah. It was almost like the curse on the genre and just Spider-Man movies. I mean, No Way Home did it, but that was post Into the Spider-Verse, so... Other examples, good or bad, include X-Men 3, even though this was prior to Spider-Man 3, I think a year before. The Dark Knight Rises. I said good or bad, Evan. Relax.
Who's the third?
What?
Who are the three? Bane,
Well, there's like four.
Talia, Catwoman,
I mean, if you
Daggett?
count, yeah, if you count,
Catwoman, is Catwoman a villain in that though? Like,
I don't know.
No.
are there three?
You got Bane, Talia, Scarecrow. He's in it.
He's not
You
really
got him
in it.
there.
He's in it for one
He
scene.
tries to kill Gordon. That's villainous. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Honestly, fair point, but like he's barely in the movie.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Raish's ghost. That's a villain, because he was a villain. I don't know. Some of these are stretching. I don't think X-Men 3 is stretching, because there was a whole all-out war at the end of that. I looked up like 2 lists, and both of them had Aquaman on it. I don't know why. Both also had Green Lantern, but nobody saw that movie. So I also don't know why in that one. I think Aquaman had Black Manta and Ocean Master. Oh, he doing the leap, y'all. He going to Aunt May right now. So honestly, less than I thought. I thought there were way more superhero movies that came out post Spider-Man 3 that just had too many villains, and people were just like, "See, no, you can't do it. You shouldn't do it. No more than 3 villains in a superhero movie." Yeah, I thought it was the whole thing. So that's just the villains for this movie, right? You mainly focus on Kingpin. You got Octavia as the henchwoman. Tombstone has a couple of lines. You got Prowler. He's one of the villains. So then let's expand it to the protagonist. I mean, the rest. Let's just expand it to the rest. You got the protagonist, and then 5 other Spider people, and then the supporting cast of his father, Aunt May, MJ, his mom, and then you got the Spider-Man from the beginning of the movie. That's not included in the other 5 Spider people. There's a lot of characters, and Evan has a point. Evan, you say your point, and I'm gonna say I agree after you finish your point.
Okay, I hope I'm pointing to the right one. I think the main reason this works is just efficiency.
I agree with Evan's point.
Yeah, just like I think there's other reasons. Again, it uses the fact that we know a lot of most people know Spider-Man to its advantage, but it's incredible how we never spend any more time than we need to with each character, but we do get enough. Like nobody gets too little time establishing them. And I feel like there's I'm not going to spit this back perfectly, but another one of our professors, David Greenberg, had this I forget exactly what he called it, but it was kind of this relationship between like the importance of a character and how memorable they're supposed to be. And his thing was basically like the less time we have with a character, the more memorable they should be. And this follows that very well, where like the henchmen kind of villains, like the ones who aren't as important, and the 3 kind of secondary Spider people, they are all very memorable. They have one thing about them. They are very distinct visually, and they're kind of fun, and we don't get any more with them. Like, it's exactly as much as we need and not a second more. But they still are, like, fun to have, and it's not like there's too little of them. Part of it is, like, you take the characters that we know from other Spider-Man movies. If you've never seen a Spider-Man before, the opening montage with the original Peter Parker gives you exactly as much as you need. Like, we establish Spider-Man is a dude in this world. Mary Jane is there. Aunt May is there. The villains are there. All right, all of that is established. Now let's get into the characters who you don't know with everyone in Miles' life. Like, it gets everything out of the way just enough that it can, like, check the box for new people, but it never overstays its welcome with anything. And remarkably, somehow it's not tired for, like, oh, here we go again, for everyone who has seen a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Like, it seems so effortless, but I'm sure it took him a long time to get to that perfect balance.
He does the dance, Evan.
He does. Yeah, it calls out Bully Maguire.
Oh yeah, because like by the time we get to the new girl like Spider-Man, I feel they're so smart tonally. It feels like the Lego movie, which makes sense because they wrote that. Like they're so aware that the audience like this. They made this. Anyone going to see this movie is probably a Spider-Man fan, especially because like the marketing wasn't doing it justice back in 2018. So like they really lean into that, like with showing animated shots from old Spider-Man movies, making jokes about them, showing the ice cream pop that everyone remembers looking terrible from their childhood when they see the picture and then they open the wrapper.
Which, even if you haven't seen a Spider-Man movie, you've seen that popsicle. Like,
Exactly.
if you're
And they know all
70
of that. Like, it's so
watching
calculated.
this.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I don't know how they pulled it off. Like, it's, and again, you can't really do that with most other movies. I was trying to think about, like, is there any other character you could do this with? The only thing I could think of, like, I guess they kind of did that with the most recent Batman. Not nearly to the level that this did, but it basically just took it as a given in that movie. Like, all right, you guys know who Batman is. We're not going to bother explaining him. Aside from that, I feel like the only other thing you can really do it with is, like, Bond kind of does that, but also, like, we never really had to establish Bond like that. Like, his backstory doesn't matter to him the way that, like, if you know Spider-Man, you need to know his backstory. You don't really need to know anything about James Bond to watch a James Bond movie. He's just fully formed, dropped right in every movie, except maybe Casino Royale, and even then he kind of is. Only other thing maybe is, like, a well-known part of history. Like, you don't need to explain what World War II is in a World War II movie, but that doesn't give you characters the way that this does. Like, you can establish, like, at best, I guess you can do, like, Hitler, Mussolini, and, like, maybe FDR. Even something as well-known as, like, World War II, you don't really get that much that the audience just takes as a given, except maybe, like, Nazis bad. But I don't even want to say that, like, Spider-Verse is using that as a crutch, because there's 1,000 wrong ways to take advantage of the fact that we already know who Spider-Man is. And it does the one that is perfect.
Because I think it's so smart. It's smart to make him a flop. Like, if we got Chris Pine Spider-Man in, like, his glory, and he's who was teaching Miles the way Miles wanted, like, Miles was like, why do I have to get the bum Spider-Man? Like, that movie would have been a drag. Like, flop Spider-Man is what you want to see, because it's rare. Like, I don't really know any movie where I see, like, middle-aged Peter Parker struggling.
Yeah. In the comics, there's a whole thing happening in the comics right now where, like, they just won't let him be happy. Whenever he gets to a certain point where he might just start to be happy, they reset it. They are torturing that character. So
I'm hoping they can turn that around with Miles here, because, I mean, I don't want to say that this movie is nice to him. It certainly throws a lot at him, including, like, you know, you get the quintessential Spider-Man tragedy, losing his uncle. It's not nice to him, but I hope that it can be nicer to him than it seems to often be to Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we don't have to make it easy on him, for sure, but
Yeah.
I'm scared Miguel's coming. He's coming for a vengeance in this one. I don't know what he's gonna do.
He's built like an action figure, and it scares me.
he really
And
is.
he's got the wide, broad shoulders and
No, not he's wide.
not Kingpin wide. Nobody can be Kingpin wide, but he's broad. But I don't think we're ever going to disagree on anything in this episode, but I still think this episode's going swimmingly.
Yeah. I had one thing I want before we move on to the next one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I had one response to something you were saying there, David, with, like, the older Peter Parker being his mentor. I hear you with that. We do get that, and I like it, but it doesn't come at the expense of giving him good mentors, which I think is really smart, because Peter is still able to show him some things, but where he lacks, we still get Gwen and the 3 other Spider people who seem more secure. Like, Gwen still has, like, a bit of an arc and stuff that we get to see with her, but as a Spider person, she seems a lot more in her element and more comfortable in a way that, like, we're still able to get a solid Spider person role model for Miles between her and the three other Spider people. And we don't spend a ton of time with it, but I think it's enough that you could, like, he still has that image there of, like, what Spider-Man should be throughout the movie. And he's kind of, he's had that throughout his life, I'm sure, with the other Spider-Man, but we still keep it in that, like, mentor context, which I think is smart.
If the boots are part of the suit and they're like shoes, how do their feet stick to walls if it's the shoe padding between the...
I've wondered about that too, especially with his sneakers. Like, is he just gripping really hard with like his hands?
In the promo image of Miles and Gwen sitting next to each other on the side of the building, how are they sticking to the building?
I don't have a good answer.
Their feet are swinging, guys.
Magic mittens? Something like that?
Nope. Think about that. I'm going to need you to think about that until you see the movie, because I'm going to need them to answer that.
You've ruined it for us now, Jelani.
You're welcome.
How can I enjoy this with that massive plot hole?
Right. Now it's a bad movie.
Well, it could have never compared to this.
CinemaSins ding.
It could have never compared to this anyway, so, just keep your expectations low and keep your heads down, fellas.
No, I want to not hold it to that standard, because it's too high of a standard to hold it to. Like, it's gonna
movie?
Yeah, it's gonna give us more time with these characters, which probably means I'm gonna like it no matter what. But I'm gonna be like, it doesn't have to be perfect.
I wonder how I'm gonna feel about Miguel O'Hara as a character. I wonder what they're gonna do with him.
Me too.
I know nothing about him aside from like what we've seen in the trailer and then the post-credit scene from this.
Yeah, he's the future guy.
Mm-hmm.
2099 Spider-Man. That's honestly pretty much... I know his, abilities. It's not much different from any Spider person. Yeah, I don't know where they're going with this. I agree on efficiency, and I think that's the main reason as well. This clocks in at just under 2 hours and uses every second of it beautifully. It knows who to use for what scenes and just how long to use them. Because of this, it gives more time to important and slower moments, like in Aaron and Miles' first scene together with Hay, or the dorm room scene, or even the scene in the car with his dad, etc. And given the balance between them using the characters for the right amount of time, using the slower moments, the movie doesn't feel rushed in any way. Like, they don't speed through those slower moments, which is great. That's all I had on breaking too many characters rule. Do it right. Use your characters right. That's it from me.
It is a really ambitious amount of characters, though. Like, I would not... And personally, I don't think I could manage having this many characters in one movie.
The next movie has more.
Somehow it's going to.
Yep. It's a whole Spiderverse.
Have either of you seen the Lego movie?
Yes.
Yo.
Just the first one.
How many are in that? I haven't seen it.
A lot as well.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Because I
Will
was talking
Ferrell.
to my one friend, and he says, like, you can see a lot of, like, the stomping ground for the dynamics and how they write in Spider-Verse in that. So I kind of want to watch that.
Yeah, Lego Shack. Will Ferrell and Lego Will Ferrell, those are two different characters. But then they kind of become one character because it was his son all along.
To my memory, it doesn't have
Wild
as
style.
many as this, though.
The Lego movie?
I don't think... I've only seen it one time, and I was not watching it with that in mind at all, so I could be wrong.
I don't remember. It's been a minute. Superhero genre and identity. This is a good long episode. I'm glad this episode is long. I'm glad we brought it with the topics. I am exhausted and I have to get up in 4 hours. So let's finish this off.
And we still haven't hit on like half of the great things about this movie.
Yeah.
But we were never going to get to all of them. Yeah, so this was another one of my topics. I think the connected universe trend in superhero movies has kind of made them lose their deeper appeal on a lot of levels. Personally, my favorite superhero movies are about people forming their identity. So, like The Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men First Class, Kick-Ass, kind of X-Men Days of Future Past, but I don't know if that one does it quite as much. But I think Spider-Verse is the best version of it. And I feel like it's really missing in, especially latter-day MCU. Some of the earlier stuff still kind of had that. But, like, the more recent ones, I feel like they're really missing what this movie delivers on so hard. Like, I think the reason we love superhero movies is that, or especially origin stories, is that at some point, all of us, like, it's a very common human experience to go through a process of discovering who we are and how to develop the gifts that we have. And superhero movies provide a really great landscape to explore that experience in a fun and empowering way that helps us like envision our final forms. I think The Amazing Spider-Man 1 is one of the best versions of that, but truly the epitome of it is the final montage of this movie. I feel like it's just exactly why superhero stories matter. And as tired as I am of this genre, like, I don't want it to die if we can get more movies like this. If we can get away from the Quantum Manias and more towards this. Like, and yeah, we've had a lot of origin stories, but I think this movie is a testament to the fact that there's more, like, this genre has more to offer in its, like, purest form, which I think this is kind of its purest form. So, oh yeah, I brought this up earlier. The symbol of him wearing the store-bought costume for most of the movie when he's, like, trying to imitate Spider-Man and struggling, and then wearing his own suit that he makes in his own art style is just perfect. And I feel like it ties in so well to the fact that he knows who Spider-Man is already. It's not an original thing that he's creating, and that just feels very current and like more lived in, because I feel like we as 21st century people have those kinds of role models, whether it's celebrities, characters, or like people we know personally in our own lives. This movie gives a more holistic look at that, where Miles has a template for what Spider-Man is. Like, he can envision himself doing it based on these other people that he sees, but he still has to find his own way to becoming Spider-Man and incorporating his own personality into it. And I really love the way that this does that. And also that, like, I feel like there's something powerful to this as well, that, like, because he's part of a group of spider people, he is not like the strongest one physically in the entire city, which is usually the case with other superhero origin stories, where they're discovering their identity, but also they are uniquely capable in a way that nobody else is. Miles is still uniquely capable, but he has other people who he can aspire to, like, reach their level. I just feel like it uses that well, and for some reason I like it more. It just feels more real for how most of us, I feel like, go through this experience. And again, that's not to, like, throw shade at other superhero movies, because they don't have that advantage, but I think there is a little bit of something that's lost there. And, you know, tied into that, we kind of talked about this a little before, but I love that he gets a pretty, like, well built out support system in this movie, where he has a basically full family dynamic with both parents, which is rare for superheroes, particularly Spider-Man. And he has peers with, like, Gwen is kind of a peer, and he has other peers-ish with his classmates. They're not really characters, but they're still kind of a presence. But even if that's not a big thing, like Gwen feels like a peer with him, and I feel like that's an important thing that they add. Andy has non-family mentors with Peter B. Parker and the other Spider people. And I really like that we have this, because you get some of it with most other superheroes. Like, they always have somebody in their corner, but it's never this many. And I think the quantity does matter, and the different roles that all the characters play, they do matter. Aunt May, I should have mentioned in that. I feel like she's another, and I'm sure that dynamic will probably continue into the sequel, where she is even kind of like a mentor to him as well. And I think they balance it out well, where like he gets guidance from all of them, but he still has to do some of this. He still has to have that leap of faith moment by himself. It feels very true to like what the universal experience of like finding your identity is in real life. It's good to have that support system there, but there are parts of it that you have to do yourself. And I feel like this captures that just so perfectly. And that is why I would consider it the absolute peak of the genre.
I think even the tagline is arrogant with the fact that people understand who Spider-Man is already. And I think it has every right to be. Enter a universe where more than one wears the mask. They don't even explain who's wearing the mask. They're like, they're just, their attitude is just, you know what it is. With your note about becoming his own Spider-Man, I've heard people are calling for Miles to get his own name at this point, kind of like Gwen has Ghost Spider, which I wouldn't even know what people just call him Miles Morales or Miles Morales Spider-Man. Some people call him Puerto Rican Spider-Man. Some people call him Black Spider-Man, whatever. I like seeing this take where the hero does have the support system, as you were mentioning, and it's there waiting to help him, but he ultimately has to make that decision to leap, which is another thing my dad tells my brother and me. So maybe that's also why it's my favorite. Yeah.
I think like it's a really cool observation and a unique point to like the nuance of the story that we get to see like him disappoint himself by failing because he has direct role models. Like every other superhero, their disappointment or their failure usually is like after the fact, where it's like Batman's like, oh, I couldn't have saved my parents, I was a kid, and Peter's like, oh, I wasn't there to do that for Uncle Ben, or Superman was like, oh, I was a baby and I was sent away. Like it's always like I wasn't good enough then, so I have to be always ready for whenever the next thing happens. And for him to like actively have people to see how he's failing, it just added like a realistic layer of disappointment, because that's how real life is. Like you see people who are doing something better than you and you're like, I need to get to that kind of level. Like you're not the first one to ever do something, so like you actually have a scale to judge your own like performance on, and that made it like more real to me.
Jesus, that hits.
Yeah, like I mean,
really hard.
even with the smallest thing of like, I watched professional disc golf coverage and I'm like, oh, that's sick. Then I go out and play a round by myself and just chuck it right into a tree, and it feels like, why can't I do what they do? And
that's too real.
Like, but
I compare myself to people too much.
And it feels so modern too, because like that's Instagram right there. Like,
yeah.
Right.
How can you feel good about yourself when there's 1,000 people that you can click through at a moment's notice that are doing that thing better? And like I'm not saying that in like a nihilistic way. It's just like, I think this is kind of tapping into that like very modern, very contemporary feeling in a way that nothing else really does. Like one of my absolute favorite moments in this is the moment when Miles comes into the fight at the end, and there's like this one split screen shot of all the other Spider people seeing him in his like final form, and it's like the most beautiful thing in the world to me. that like he's one of them now. I don't know if that's exactly tied into the.
Well, they also add the comic on top of the piles of yeah.
Just like the perfect button.
And compare the first comic of I'm Spider-Man. I'm the only one. To I'm not the only one wearing the mask. You can wear the mask. Like it drives it home.
Yeah.
And they it's so funny to have like a literal bookend with comics. Like that's just like an extra layer of comedy. Like you're so cheeky.
But again, it earns it so well because that final form, and like this kind of goes back to stuff we were talking about earlier with like why the leap of faith is better because it's withheld. Like the final form hits so much harder because we've seen him struggle so much. Instead of struggling for like half an hour, he's struggling for like basically the entire movie until he's not, and it's that's why I'm choked up for the entire third act, even through that entire fight scene, because it's final form Miles, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, let's send it. Evan, do you got random notes?
Oh yeah. I checked your notes, Jelani. Do you guys know, combining our two favorite things on this podcast, do you know the Community Easter egg in this movie?
I remember seeing it. It's like somebody pointed it out on Reddit, I think. And then I completely forgot to look for it when I watched this again.
David, do you know what it is?
Nope.
Okay, Jelani, do you want to take it?
Yeah, so I think it's the first scene where Miles visits Uncle Aaron. On the TV in the background, you can see Donald Glover getting out of bed and stretching in a Spider-Man shirt, which is a shot from the hit TV show Community.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's... I don't know why it's in it, but shout out to that.
Well, I think it's because there was the whole thing of like people wanted Donald Glover to be Spider-Man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That just came back again, by the way, because apparently a live action Miles Morales movie is in the works.
Yep.
Is it going to be part of the MCU or?
I have no clue.
I kind of hope not, but it probably will be.
I just know it's been announced. If it will be, they have, like, how are they going to explain, like, he would have to be, like, a preteen right now. Because Spider-Man just came into his own in the MCU, so what the hell?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
I feel like the MCU is too messy at this point. Like, I'd want him to... I just want more of this Miles, like...
Oh, yeah.
Starting a live-action one. Like, I'm sure we'll get it someday, and that's fine. But, like, get this one right, above all, is my priority.
I'm just glad Miles is getting... I'm not saying was the biggest fan prior to Spiderverse, but since Spiderverse, he's become my number 2 favorite superhero, behind Static Shock. But I'm glad he's getting the, and I'm not calling myself the biggest fan because I haven't read any of the comics, but I'm glad he's getting the shine that he is in all these other forms of media that are more, not sustainable, but popular than comics, in movies, games, and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to more Miles.
Same.
You have another note?
I do. One tiny prediction for the sequel. I noticed this time around, the spider that bites Miles glitches like the other extra-dimensional characters. So I'm thinking, if the spider that bit him isn't from his own dimension, maybe that means he can stay in other dimensions longer, unlike the other spider people. Could be wrong on that. Don't tell me if the trailers spoil it, but minor prediction. Otherwise, I want to predict nothing. I want to know as little as possible. I am so hyped for this sequel.
Same.
Likewise.
Do we all have our tickets?
Yeah, I'm seeing it Sunday at 10:45.
I don't, because I don't know when I'm going to try to make it this weekend, but I don't know.
You'd better.
I really want to.
We might need to do a quick episode or something.
I'm very excited.
Reaction episode or something on it.
I'm gonna go to my friend's house and we're gonna watch Into the Spider-Verse tomorrow. Make it a nice 31 for me, and then push on to Across.
Hell yeah.
And I can tell him to his face that it's not common.
I can't
Oh, he's the
believe-
one. Okay.
like, I don't know. It's not
Dumbass.
common.
Tell him to stay in med school.
Let's hit us with the boilerplate and let's it's silent.
Yeah.
It's very late.
It is. All right. Our next episode is Mission Impossible, the original one from '96. Not streaming anywhere, but go see it if you haven't, because it slaps. We have our YouTube channel with video essays, including one on Spider-Man that features Spiderverse, but is not exclusively about it. And we have a lot of other Spider-Man content. We have 2 podcasts on the Amazing Spider-Mans, and if you join our Patreon, you can go back and listen to me and Jelani ranting about how we feel about the Raimis.
Unfiltered gloriousness.
Very unfiltered, very unhinged, but not exactly complimentary, but it's a good time. $1 a month. The link for that is in the description. Our logo's by Kelsey Hendry. I'm on Letterboxd at ev_wes. Where are both of you?
Instagram, Jelani T. Kelly. Twitter. I have like 20 notifications on Twitter. I haven't checked. I think they're all just news notifications. Jelani T. Kelly there, I guess, if you want. YouTube, same thing. Jelani T. Kelly. And that's it. I mean, I'm back on backstage acting again. I mean, I've been trying to. We'll see how that goes. So I don't know if I'm available for hire. Yeah. All right, the movie's ending.
Oh,
The movie's ending at the same time we're ending this.
Wow, perfect timing.
that's fate.
Yes, I think so.
David, where are you at?
I'm at Visions Academy in the dorm room hanging out with Genki because he didn't get enough
that
screen
is
time
good.
in this movie, and I need some Genki and Across the Spider-Verse because he's crucial.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. By next time, hopefully we will have seen it.
I don't know what I'm doing if I haven't by next time, whenever it is. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta do it. If I have to go alone, I will. I'd rather go with a group, but I'm getting there in the next few days.
But all right. Thank y'all for listening. And Officer Dad, love you.
That's a copy.
All right.